Hey guys, welcome back to Diving Deep in Thought. You're here with Elias, and today I want to talk to you guys about a Greek story that's going deep, but not diving deep. We're walking deep into a cave. I'm going to tell you about this Greek philosopher who was born around 2,500 years ago. His name is Plato. He was the student of Socrates, and he actually taught Aristotle. Him and all his mates are all nerds. They were big, big nerds that basically changed the way we think today. Socrates was the founder of Greek Western philosophy 2,500 years ago. And unfortunately, he got beheaded for knowing too much, which we can think of many leaders where that happened. But let's not go down that rabbit hole. So a bit about Plato. His parents were pretty well off. He was sitting around doing nothing most of the time. So we thought, you know what? Let me formulate these new concepts of getting people feeling better. And a good way of doing that is telling them about their love life, telling them about the life they live, how to see things differently, not necessarily changing the world you see, but changing the way you see the world. And if everybody changes the way they see the world will eventually change. So he saw it like that. Rather than, wars and all that. He was in his office with his mates. Instead of drinking and getting on the piss, he was sitting there and he was formulating these really deep concepts. So the allegory today is the allegory of the cave. So it's a story of the cave. So there's these 4 prisoners that are in this cave. They're chained up, their heads are fixed, and they're facing a wall. And the opening of the cave is sort of a bit distant. They can't ever see the opening. But as people are walking past objects, sounds, these people are formulating what they think these shadows may be. So they're talking amongst each other and they're saying to each other, what do you think that could be? I wonder what that is. That noise is coming from that type of object. It's very interesting. And they start to formulate this concept of the way they see the world through shadows. They can only see shadows because they're in that cave. Now, over time, they're talking to each other, and as they're seeing these shadows, they're engaging in conversation, and they're asking questions like, when he speaks, why is that sound coming from this type of shadow, or this sound coming from this type of shadow? When they're engaging, do they know that they're only shadows talking to each other? And as they talk, they formulate what they believe an object and a shadow of an object and that sound, and they create meaning just by that. After a few years, so these are young prisoners, after a few years, one of the prisoners escapes. Now this prisoner's trying to make a break for it, but as he runs to the entry of the cave, he finds that it's very bright. So he covers his eyes and he looks down, and as he's walking out and looking down, he notices that there's color. So he looks down and he finds the ground and the grass and flowers, and he walks he's walking outside and he notices there's like an ascent. So he's ascending, there's like a hill, but he can't make it all the way up the hill because the sun's too bright. So he stops off and he sees a lake. He sees his reflection in the lake. So he sees color and a reflection, and he figures out that he's defining himself differently to just shadows. And as he's going up, this ascension, the night falls. And as the night falls, he looks up and he sees stars and moonlight. And he sees this blanket of blackness with these spots of white. So he's getting these revelations as he's ascending this mountain. As he's going up, his senses are opening up to more sounds, and he's associating new sounds with new things. And as he gets closer to the top, the sun starts to get a bit brighter, and he starts to notice that his eyes are burning more and that there's a resistance. There's something he can't quite understand. And then finally, through hard work, persistence, he gets there. He gets to the summit of the mountain and he looks up. And what he sees is the sun. And he says to himself, by looking at this sun with all its intensity, this must be the source of all light. And this sun that I'm looking at right now must be the reason for all the seasons, must be the reason for all life, for everything to grow, to live. And yet it's one with everything. Wherever it hits, it warms it up. Photosynthesis, everything is defined by the sun, whether it's light or dark. So he gets this big epiphany, this divine intervention at the top. And he realizes, he catches himself again and he goes, you know what? My mates would want to know about this. If I just duck down there, get my eyes back adjusted to the darkness and tell them about this side of this perspective, I wonder how they'd perceive it. And then he started pondering on that question and he sat there and he went, would they take it well? If I told them about this, they must be moved. If they can feel what I'm feeling, that'd be amazing. So he went back down. He went into the cave and his eyes hurt again. His eyes had to adjust back to the darkness. And he said to the prisoners, he said, what if I told you that what you're looking at is not real? It's not actually real. We're just seeing these shadows. They're shadows. They're the absence of the light. And they couldn't comprehend at first. They go, what's wrong with this guy? Is he out of his mind? Did he go up, without eyes and come down? I don't get it. I'm not picturing what you're talking about. And then he says, but you wouldn't believe it. The source of everything, it's up there. So that night he slept in the cave. And he was frightened for his life because he realized these guys are going to conspire to kill him because he's gone mad. He's gone. It's not the same guy that they saw before. So he ends up leaving. He leaves the cave. And these guys stay. And obviously the other prisoners that stayed, they're in a bigger group. And this guy's with them. So he comes back down and then he realizes that what he's seen is something that they can't see. He finally realizes this, and that the only way that he could have told them is to slowly tell them or let these things infiltrate at a rate that, that's incomparable to the divine intervention he had. So what he was basically trying to tell him is, it's like saying to a blind person, this is what I saw. It's describing images and color and texture and just other dimensions of life to someone who's blind. So it's very hard, but in time, if they got exposed to that environment, they could get there. So that's basically the allegory. That's the story. And the story can be related to people on many different levels. There's no one way to look about this. One way of looking at it is saying that the cave is like your living room. And the shadows on the wall at a TV that's programming us to think a certain way, to push a certain agenda, to keep us quiet so that we can't really get out of that cave, or that we get so comfortable and so rigid because we're creatures of habit and instant reward and feedback. They don't want us to see that the sun and go through that ascension or burning of the eyes. Maybe that's too much for some people to bear. That could be one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is, in our society today, that cave could represent the bigger agendas in the public of what's considered acceptable and unacceptable, religiously, traditionally, politically, socially, economically. These are different other societal constructs that have been made so that a certain agenda could be pushed, and that by the mass population telling you may be crazy, this isn't the right way to think, why would you think like that? That's like these friends. He came back to tell them what he felt, and they couldn't really grasp, and that's okay. There's probably another way that they could come to this understanding for themselves. But if we don't instigate a level of thought that's beyond the everyday superficial thinking. You'll never really know how much perspective can be changed. I mean, this guy was not physically changed at all. Other than his eyes adjusting to the brightness, nothing physically changed. It was a mindset. That's the difference. He came back and they saw the physical, I don't even think they even saw him because their heads were fixed, but his physical body came back, but this other element came back. This other element that changed him completely. He'll never be the same after that experience. So it's beautiful to see that. And another way of looking at this could be he could have come back, but when we see people who have been in a really, really bad situation and they get out of it, they see a life from another dimension that we may not see. So we're not only looking at this from being that guy, but we're looking at it from the other guys too. Is when someone tells you something that may be deep, or they may be hurt, or you get that gut instinct that tells you something may not be right. Take that chance, make a phone call, talk to people, try to understand it from their point of view, the other point of view, the fact that he's not crazy. Understand him, sit, listen. Sometimes people just want to call you to have a chat, and that's okay. Drop down your walls for a second and listen to them. They might tell you something you don't know. This guy went out and he actually saw the sun. Now, them not believing he saw the sun, what did they lose? If they had seen something that they may not have at the time understood, but knowing that if they did understand it by breaking out, how different would their life have been? They may have had a motivation to want to break out to see the light, but instead they were used to that darkness. And yeah, so this allegory can be related to basically anything. Anything. It's up to you how you want to take it, but it's just one of those things where it's nice to see what's outside the cave, and that cave could just be even your physical body, and you just want to feel what's outside. You can meditate. That could be one way. It could be a physical change. And the cave could represent the body that you don't want, and the shadows could be the disempowering beliefs, and the light and the sun and your reflection that you see in the water. All these things could be action that you could take to move forward. So this is what I'm hoping Plato wanted to get out there. He thought of this 2,500 years ago. That's bloody crazy. Like, that is crazy. People were drinking, back in Greece. They would have had the best time of their lives, man, in Athens too. So everyone was probably on spring break. He was sitting in his room or his office with his mates, and he told them this story, and they're probably gobsmacked. And yeah, so I just thought I'd tell you about that. I hope it gets you out of your cave, I guess. And if you enjoyed this, or you think someone else needs to get out of their cave in some sense, this is something that it's not something you tell people to do. It's bringing this to their attention, and then they make of it as they wish. It's an internal or external, but it's a personal thing. It's not about imposing anything on anyone, because when you impose something on someone and they're not ready for it, they'll maybe take it the wrong way or feel offended, and you don't want that. You want to be a good friend. So if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share, and it'll go into the YouTube universe, and more people will know about Plato, and he'll be very happy. And looking down on us and thinking, oh mate, I think you did all right. So I hope you guys got a bit of a meaning out of that, a deeper meaning than a simple story of prisoners escaping. It wasn't just a prison break back in Athens. This is real. This is like something that you can take from it that should hopefully help you. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you.